Thank you, Oby. Now, what we're going to do, while you folks have a chance to think of questions you'd like to ask the panel, I'd like to play what I call the game of three. We've got three panelists, and I've got three questions that I'm going to address to each of the panelists. And the first question is, what are the three biggest challenges that you have faced in starting and running your business in Nigeria, or that you think others would face? The three biggest challenges, only three. So we'll start with Charles.
I don't know. Is it working? Yeah. I would say they're not dissimilar to businesses anywhere. And the first is finding great people that you can trust and that understand your particular industry. No disrespect to the male race, but one of my Nigerian friends said to me, wherever you can, hire women in Nigeria. I would say the second is it can be a bureaucratic country, and to avoid the pitfalls of dealing with bureaucracy, you have to be very patient. It can be incredibly bureaucratic. And that applies to not only getting goods into the country, but getting permits and things. Things take a long time. And the third, I can't think of another one. I would say those are the two biggest challenges.
I would echo Charles in terms of the staff aspects of it and looking for very strong people, and unfortunately, with the reputation of Nigeria, and it's also real, in true terms, it is not it is a big change from Canada or Don Mills. So getting good people is certainly a major consideration. I think the other aspect is of the way the bureaucracy impacts us is that a lot of our work is for Nigerian government or government agencies, and perhaps it would be fair to say that their attitude towards payment of their bills is a little different than we would like it to be. It's very slow. Agencies in Nigeria will sign contracts when based on their expectation of receiving funds in the budget. Sometimes they're disappointed and they don't have the funds, or when the funds come, you find there's 10 other contractors also expecting to be paid, and you're in a bit of a queue. So that's discouraging and harms our business. It's something that our bankers in Canada certainly don't understand or appreciate. So I think those are the main areas for us.
Thank you. I would perhaps say that the major challenge we faced was just in terms of the time it takes for things to be done. And I think I'd echo one of the things that my co-speaker shared in terms of being patient. Sometimes perhaps we're used to things happening because we live in a fast-paced environment, and you make a phone call and things tend to happen immediately after. I think working in Nigeria, we and our investors have found that things just take a little longer, and it just really sort of reinforces the need to be patient and to be polite, and things will get done. It's just a different way of doing things. Thank you.
Okay, question number 2 is, looking back on your successes, what do you think are the 3 sort of most important decisions that you made with respect to Nigeria that have led to your success? We're going to start this one with Peter.
I think the biggest decision, in fact, was to recognize the difference in Nigeria and the wide breadth of opportunities, and the decisions to hire people and stay, as opposed to operating up until then. Our normal course of action was essentially to operate on a project-by-project basis. So we we privatized the railway in Romania. We'd never been there before, and we haven't been there since. So we had a very narrow rifle sort of approach to business. In Nigeria, we realized there were wider opportunities, and that we should also be more flexible and broader in our consideration of what opportunities there might be.
Thank you. I would say that one of the major sort of factors in encouraging us to really look at Nigeria was really recognizing the opportunity and being confident about the opportunities that are there. Where you're speaking to a sort of the chairman of a fund that has over $8 billion or so under management, and you're talking about a country that they only need to turn on the TV or the CNN and see terrible things being said or written about the country. You really do have to be confident about what you're saying. And I think for us it was we understand that there are opportunities there, and we were passionate about it. And as a result of that, we were able to give confidence to our investors, to our clients, to our partners, to say, look, irrespective of what you see, let's focus on the real deal. It is real. You can make money. You can increase your profits. And that was just the major factor. And because of that, they were ready to invest, and they're still investing. So.
Accurate information is hard to gather, often in Nigeria and across Africa. So you have to be prepared to make investment decisions with less information than you would be used to getting when you're investing in developed markets. So you have to have a bit of a leap of faith sometimes. And I think there are times when people hesitate because they don't have all of the information that they would be used to getting. So I think it's the ability to overcome not only that fear of investment and all the other fears around investing. So I think that's what pushing ahead and going through with it.
And I hope you're listening carefully, because there's a lot of wisdom being distilled here. So the last question is, when you're building a success story, there are some sort of bumps along the way. So the third question would be, what lessons have you learned? What would you do differently if you were to go back? Now, obviously, cumulatively, the right decisions have predominated because you've all been successful. But there must have been some things where if you got it at the time, made a different decision, you would have been better off. So what are the lessons you've learned from your experience in Nigeria, what you do differently? And we'll start with Oby, please.
Thank you. I would, just drawing on our experience in terms of our involvement in the power sector, I would re-echo what my co-speaker said in terms of just making investment decisions that really kind of stem from the heart, because we lost out on the power station just because we were waiting for more information. We should have just placed a bid based on what we knew we could get, so what we could what was best, and I think again it goes back to the fact that sometimes you don't have all the information available, but you really have to go with your gut feeling and really take that step. So I think in terms of that particular opportunity, we would definitely bid higher to be able to take advantage of that. Generally speaking, I think just looking back at the 2-year process that we've had, I wouldn't. There were 1 or 2 challenges, but I would say in terms of the process, it's been better than we expected, and we're looking forward to greater success.
My single biggest mistake about investing in Nigeria is I waited too long. I should have started 5 years earlier, if not 10 years earlier. I was a chicken.
I think my biggest mistake, I mentioned a minute ago one of the positive things we did, which was to think about broadening our services and what we did, but that was also our biggest mistake. We we worked on the conceptual design and getting the blue line going and ran the bidding for the selection of the design build contractor. And then our client asked us, he said, we need an owner's engineer, and you know, you started this process and helped to select the contractor, so you would be the best person to do this. And it's not our business at all. We're not an engineering firm, but they sort of said, well, you know, get some people. So we, you know, and we took that contract on. We took it on without a proper contract. We had a letter to start work, and it was not successful at all. We lost money on it, and it took us a long time to get paid. And it wasn't until Governor Fashola came here to look at the rolling stock and visited Toronto, and we had the opportunity to sort of go down to Niagara Falls with him and help him to understand what we'd done and the work we'd put in, and eventually things worked out. But that was probably our biggest mistake.
Well, just before I open the floor up to you folks, let me ask the panelists if they have any questions that they'd like to put to their co-panelists. No? Pretty tame. Okay, out here, we have a microphone up in front. Who would like to pose a question to our panel?
Okay, good.
Is this the Friday afternoon lull? Or is everybody, all their questions have been answered? It's a good panel, I admit, but there must be a few lingering questions. Okay, please.
In your business ventures in Nigeria, did you also meet any Nigerian entrepreneurs that you talked about to Canada who want to invest in Canada?
Good question. Who wants to, well, all three of you, who wants to speak
Not yet.
first? Okay, one. Peter?
Well, actually, and Oby, it's funny because in the power privatization, you know, Canadians or other people often ask us, you know, where are the investors from and were there any investors in Canada? And in every case, I've said no, we didn't have any investors in Canada. And at the conference today or yesterday, I met a group who, in fact, bid and won one of the generating companies, the Sapelli. They're the successful investors, and they said, "Oh, they're a Canadian company." And then just now, I'm hearing for the first time from Oby that she was involved in, unfortunately, an unsuccessful bid, but one of the bids. So I think people from Nigeria are investing in Canada. We've seen colleagues of ours that we worked, professionals that we worked with in Nigeria, who have appeared in Canada and told us that they're now Canadians. That two people that are here these 2 days as well. So we see a great deal of interaction, and I wonder, part of the it's interesting to think about, but you can't help but notice that many of the Canadian companies, and they're very, very real Canadian companies that are investing in Nigeria, have Nigerian connections. There are some people from the diaspora, or they've hired key managers to bring in Nigerian expertise. So what I see is part of this. We talk about trade all the time, and we think about trade of goods, and we think of investment of money flowing. But I think another part of the rich ties between Canada and Nigeria is, in fact, the movement of people. And we've talked about Canadians who are living and working in Nigeria, but the Nigerians who've come to Canada, perhaps for education or other opportunities, and are now citizens of Canada, are also making a tremendous impact. I'll tell you a very brief story. The President Jonathan Goodluck was here about 2 years ago. Before the election, and he was acting as he was the president due to the unfortunate passing away of the former president. And so we were in a small room, a quarter of the size of this at the very most, and it was a session to meet the diaspora. There'll be one tomorrow where the vice president is going to meet the diaspora, and so this very small room, and it was packed, that I'm not sure quite how I ended up there, but my wife and I were invited to join, and we were there. And so one of the first things they did was to sing the national anthem of Nigeria. So they sang, the president stood up straight and they sang the national anthem, and there were quite a few people singing along. And then without anybody saying anything, a number of the Nigerians in the room started to sing the Canadian national anthem. And they sang strongly and followed all the words through, and it was really, to me, it was quite significant and quite moving. It wasn't organized. No one said, okay, now you should do this. In fact, it was a spontaneous reaction from, and the room was completely, the Nigerian diaspora in Canada. But those new Canadians, citizens of Canada, but with roots in Nigeria, felt very proud and confident of their being Canadian, of their acceptance in Canada. And we see the same. Those people are a force for investment in Nigeria, for transfer of Canadian technology back to Nigeria, and our countries are going closer as a result.
Well, just as an aside to that, I do quite a bit of work with India, and of course the South Asian diaspora in Canada is much larger than the Nigerian diaspora. There are about close to 1 million, I guess, people of South Asian origin in Canada, and now they're in many cases a catalyst for trade and investment, to the extent that there's more foreign direct investment from India and Canada than vice versa, which is a very interesting commentary given the two levels of economic development. So the point there, I think, is when you have a diaspora that's active and growing, it can be a great asset in building trade and investment links. Oby, you didn't get a chance to comment? No. Okay.
I concur.
Okay.
I don't have any other comments to make.
Did you have a question? No, please.
Quick one. What would you say to Canadian companies trying to assess the payment risk with, dealing with certain government agencies in Nigeria in general? What can they do to improve their ability, their chance to get paid? And what is, in your view, what are the reasons generally? Because obviously we know about the strength, the economic, the fiscal strength of the central government. So what are the reasons for payment delays or non-payment?
Peter, you're smiling. Would you like to answer that one first?
Just get the microphone. Microphone.
I'm sorry, but I'm not exactly sure what you're asking. I know you're concerned about the risks, and that's your profession. Are you looking for ways to overcome payment risk?
In general, that's right. What can you do? What kind of homework can a company do to make sure they will get paid on time?
Well, one of the unfortunately it doesn't work with the government because they have restrictions, but one thing I've found in working with the private sector in Nigeria is that because of the bad reputation of Nigeria and the concern and people's confusion about 419 and this sort of thing, that Nigerian private companies in many cases have been forced to and don't see it as a huge imposition to be asked to pay a significant amount up front. It's a cash economy in many ways, and terms that in Canada would be treated as almost punitive are fairly standard. So private companies don't talk about their credit so much. They expect to have to pay for some things in advance.
Charles, any comments?
No, I don't sell to the government of Nigeria.
Okay. Well, that, incidentally, is one partial answer. I spent 6 years in the Middle East where you have similar problems, and you have to divide your customers between public sector and private sector. Public sector, for the most part, you were assured of getting paid, but you're also assured it probably wasn't going to be on time. But you knew at the end of the day it was going to be there, and you had to plan accordingly when you're doing your financial modeling. Private sector was more likely to be yes or no. Yes, you're going to get paid, and probably closer to being on time, or sometimes you just wouldn't get paid at all. All the more reason to be very careful about who you were dealing with. But the other thing to bear in mind, there was a crossover, because if you're dealing with a private sector company for whom most of their business is with the public sector, they're facing exactly the same problem you are, so chances are you won't get paid for a while. So you have to put all these sort of permutations and combinations together when you're doing your business plan to account for this delay in receiving the cash. Oby, have you got any words of wisdom on that one? Okay. Please.
Good afternoon. My name is Kunle Oladoshu, and this question is for Charles. So you have $1 million, and I know you have a suite of investments that you are considering, but this is new. You have a new $1 million, and your investment objective will include creating the maximum impact in terms of creating employment in Nigeria and making the returns of about probably 6% a year. I just want to ask you, what sort of investment will you consider? What will be your factors in assessing the investment you want to put the money in? I just want to drink from your pool of knowledge working in this market.
That's a pretty hard question to answer in less than half an hour. You know, my experience in Nigeria is strictly in the equipment distribution business, so I don't feel able to answer questions of other investment opportunities in Nigeria. So I don't feel qualified to do that. Perhaps one of my colleagues could. It's also kind of a hard question to answer in an environment like this. It's a very lengthy, drawn-out answer.
Peter?
I'm surprised Charles is ducking that question, because that's what he does for a living every day. But
no, he said to create employment. He said to create employment. If you want to make an investment opportunity in Nigeria, it's very simple. Buy Nigerian breweries, buy 3 banks, buy Dangote Group, and go home. Right? They're listed on the Nigeria Stock Exchange. They're fantastic companies. They're well managed. They pay great dividends, but you're not creating employment. But if you've got $1 million, just put it into 5 listed companies in Nigeria and go and don't even worry about it. Put it in a shelf and come back in 10 years' time and they're going to be way up. But you're not creating employment. So your question of creating employment and starting a new business, that's at this I would feel I'm not adequately experienced to answer that question right now. But if you just want to make money in Nigeria, buy stocks and forget about it for 10 years.
Peter? You've already bought the stocks?
No, as I said, I think this is Charles' business. I think I didn't hear the part about employment, and I don't know. Although I would add, I mean, the money, if you're putting fresh money in from outside, then you're buying the person who's selling you those shares. It's either the company themselves, in which case they're using that money to expand their business and buy facilities, or you're buying shares from another investor who's quite possibly going into a higher risk area and starting businesses themselves. So the impact of your money may indeed go to building the economy and creating employment at a secondary level.
But let me step back. My advice to you would be: where do you live? Do you live in Canada or Nigeria? You live in Canada? Are you Nigerian? Yes, sir. Go home. Okay. Don't think that you can start a business in Nigeria sitting here in Toronto, my friend, okay? Go home, look around, open your eyes, and there's a lot of low-hanging fruit, okay? And you will find plenty of opportunities, but don't think you can do it from here. I can do it from here because I spent 10 years living in Kenya, and I have 1,000 people that work for me in Africa, okay? So it's not really fair for me to answer that question, but go home. There's incredible, you know that better than I do.
Thanks, Charles. I think you are spot on. Another question I would like to ask, in terms of the population of Nigeria, young, with a lot of people that speak English, in terms of opportunity in the space of business process outsourcing and knowledge process outsourcing. What do you think about the opportunity for that? In any event, I live in Toronto, but I go to Africa every other month. I was in South Sudan last month, in Sierra Leone about 2 months ago. So I take your point, you have to go back. But in terms of business process outsourcing, call center outsourcing to a country like Nigeria, given the fact that the English is the lingua franca and the sizable population of young, well-educated people that we have. What do you think the opportunity for that is?
Yeah, just stay there because I have a question back at you.
Yeah.
How often do you call home?
How often? I call Nigeria every day.
Is it an easy process?
Very easy.
And what about calling from Nigeria here? An easy process?
It's quite easy.
I find it sometimes the pipeline is challenging. The quality of calls is challenging. I think that's one of the reasons that many countries in Africa have not taken off as call centers, is the cost and the call quality. You need huge pipeline and you need low cost. And when you compare that to countries like India, it's not the language, it's not the education that's the issue, it's the telecommunications infrastructure.
Oh, I see. Okay. Thank you.
Oby, did you have a comment on the last question earlier?
I was really just going to just to agree with what Charles had said. I think it's important where you do want to invest in Nigeria. I think, particularly that amount of money, I think you do need to be there. It's not enough to sit, here in Toronto and just think you can just send money home and voila, things happen. I think if you really are interested in growing a business and invest in, I think you need boots on the ground. You need to at least establish a framework and have trusted people working for you before to see the business grow before you sort of relax. So I would definitely agree with what Charles had said.
Another question, please.
Yes. It's no question about the opportunities and potential of Nigeria. Absolutely no question. I think something that has been missing so far from most of the presentation is the issue of, or the topic of social responsibility. It's one thing to invest in a community and it's another one to actually invest in the people. Right? So I would like to know what that is or where that is on the agenda, or if, I'm sure you are, but what are the great things that's being done to develop the youth, to help them become, to have skills that they can stand on their own and deal with those challenges that most of us are not used to hear. That's
okay, I'm glad you asked me that question. In Nigeria, we're still starting, so we haven't really started our corporate social responsibility program yet in Nigeria. But in Kenya, where we've been there for longer and are more established, we distribute tens of thousands of books every year. We've built many schools and classrooms. We've made donations in the healthcare sector. I sit on the board of Sick Kids Hospital here in Canada, and the reason I do that is because I've made significant donations to their programs in Ghana, in particular in a nurses training program. I sit on the board of AMREF here in Canada because we've made donations to the work that they're doing in Kenya. So I would agree with you. I think that corporate social responsibility in Africa is something that must have the attention of the chairman, and it's something that I am actively involved in together with my wife. We have a foundation which is very active in Africa. And it's infinitely more important in Africa because the lack of funds that the government has and the high returns that the private sector has, I think, therefore puts an onus on the private sector to be more engaged in corporate social responsibility in places like Africa than you would be in North America, because in North America and Europe, the government is really taking care of those things. So I wholeheartedly agree with you, and I spend a lot of my time, probably 15 to 20% of my time, and significant investment in corporate social responsibility, personally through our foundation and through our companies. So I agree with you, it's critically important. And it's critically important not only because, as I said, the government doesn't have the funds, but as I said before, I think it's important as a foreign investor to be partnering with the local community. And there's no way to better partner with the local community than to be investing in education and healthcare in the local community.
So if I may applaud that, you see it then not only as being moral responsibility, but also good for business.
Absolutely. It's a two-sided coin.
Right.
Okay, and I'm not going to pretend that my philanthropic efforts in Africa is just to help the people of Africa. It's for my business, and because I feel a responsibility and a moral obligation, but it's also great for my business and makes sense for my business. So we focus our philanthropic efforts in areas that make sense for our business.
Makes sense. Peter, any comment? Oh, sorry, Oby.
I would agree totally with Charles's comments. I think it's important, not just from a moral perspective, but it makes business sense. I think where you have a corporation that is interested in the needs of the community that they're working within, and are taking active steps to make sure that they are contributing back to that community, you find that such a corporation will succeed, particularly in a place like Africa where, as Charles had pointed out, the needs are, the government can't sort of carry out all those or meet all those needs. So we look at the private sector to be able to address the challenges, and as a corporation where you're making huge profits, your investors are happy. I think it's only not just right from a moral standpoint, but also from a business standpoint to ensure that you have adequate procedures, adequate programs that give back to the community that you're taking, you're reaping the benefits from. So I would agree totally.
Peter, anything else to add?
I don't think I have it. I know it's, especially in the extractive industries, extremely important where people are working in remote communities. We're primarily working in the city, and we see our prime role really in hiring young people and giving them the opportunity to work and gain experience, and that's our main initiative.
Question over here.
My name is Barry Esimone, Cross Team Nigeria. It's interesting to share the experience the Canadian investors are having in Nigeria. But at the same time, some of us have experience also trying to work with Canadians from Nigeria. And I want to find out if there are regulatory framework from where such challenges we had can be addressed. What challenge did we have? Part of our experience is that the Canadians who are willing to venture in Nigeria, not just Canadians, but Westerners, are mostly the ones retired from active work from Western world, and they want to come back to Africa somewhere to finally go down. And they engage you, and there's no way to find out the structure of the organization way back home. I had an experience with a Calgary-based company. We put in a lot of work for 2 years in developing modular refinery. And we worked so hard at that. And each time I called my partner to draw in other members of organization in the MOU, he said we should move on. But on ground in Ghana, he has an organization going on, but we didn't know how far his organization is set up in Canada. Suddenly one day he didn't wake up, and 2 years work we did went down the drain. When we contacted back home country, the successor who inherited the company said he had no interest in Africa. We have put 2 solid year work on ground. Is there anywhere we can take recourse in finding out well-structured companies we want to relate with them so that we don't fall into such a pitfall next time? Thank you.
Anybody want to comment? I would think a short answer might be the council, the Nigerian Business Council, but
I was actually going to suggest that. I think this is a great forum to meet Canadian businesses that are interested in Africa, and I know that a number of them. I've met with a number of them. Of course, we're a Canadian business here as well. So I think forums like this, conferences like this, really do give you an opportunity to meet companies that are Canadian, that are interested in Africa, and it's really just looking for the right partner. I think it's unfortunate. I'm sorry to hear of your situation. It's unfortunate that the circumstances took place the way they did, but I think where you do meet the right partner and you have an understanding, I think a lot of things can be addressed before the business moves on. So I would suggest, again, forums like this are great to meet good, solid Canadian businesses.
Anybody else? One thing, just on that point, sometimes one of our best kept secrets in Canada in terms of a government service, and people say that's an oxymoron, but government services is the Canadian Trade Commissioner services. All the Canadian embassies around the world have people who specialize in trade. and their interest is in promoting trade and investment in both directions. So if a Nigerian company, for example, is looking for a good Canadian partner, that's a good place to start. They can give you advice, first of all, on doing business in Canada, different parts of Canada, and suggest partners who might match what you're looking for. So, as I say, it's a good repository of knowledge, and they have links back here to domestic partners who can help you take the next step in finding the actual individual or company that you want to do business with. Next question.
Hi, my name is Samuel Gerechu. All over the continent, African continent, the Canadian embassies and high commissions are being closed down by the Canadian government. Is it a sign that the Canadian leadership in Africa rests with the private sector, not in governments anymore, in the Canadian governments anymore?
If I may just interject before the panel answers, I hope so. Because it's the business sector that does business, not the government. The government can create the kind of architecture and the framework within which business is conducted, but at the end of the day, it's the business people who do the business. So
I'm also referring to not just business, but in terms of international aid, the kind of work that Stephen Lewis, Brian Mulroney were involved in back in the 1980s and 1970s, the Lester Pearsons, and those kind of people that showed real leadership in Africa, including peacekeeping.
Peter's got.
Maybe I might say I think I'm not in favor of Canada closing down its posts. I think they serve a vital role in developing relations and in acting as listening posts and so on. But I think especially your question with regard to development assistance or aid, you have to realize that today the amount of official aid, ODA, is tiny now compared to foreign direct investment, which is far larger, and also compared to even remittances. Remittances from the diaspora, not just in Nigeria but in so many countries, is far larger than official development assistance. So, and as you've seen for the reorganization of CEDA, the whole development assistance area has problems. They don't know whether they're in development anymore or whether they're charities, huge charities. So I think this is going to continue. The amount of aid is not getting any larger, whereas remittances and foreign direct investment are on a very steady upward growth, and that'll continue until aid is less and less significant.
Well, if there are no further, one more question.
Yeah, I just want to mention that what we see from Canada to Nigeria are similar to all these investments. We have consultants going in. We have companies who sell us equipments. Yet we know that the greatest problem in Nigeria is the fact that we have a lot of educated, also uneducated youths who do not have jobs. And one of the reasons, I'm trying to find a reason why the Minister of Finance and the Central Bank, they'll say the Nigerian economy is growing 7%, is growing by 8%. Yet these economies, this growth is not reflected in the lives of the people. So I want to borrow on your international experience. Why is it that the same kind of growth in India could create jobs that led to the growth of the middle class, the consumer class, within a decade to what it is? Whereas in Nigeria, what we keep hearing are these increasing very high growth rates, and we don't see the money reflected in investments. Thank you.
Anybody want to tackle that one? Charles?
I think, we do it. Yeah.
My only comment to that would be that I think I think it will take a bit of time. I know you cited examples like India, and we have seen in the last couple of years, a focus on Africa, not just from Canada, but I think from the rest of the world. And I think Nigeria is a fantastic example. I think we will see hopefully see those sort of numbers reflected in the number of young people working and people that are employed. But I think it will take some time. I think it's not something that we can see a change in a short period of time. I think we need to be a bit patient. The fact that there's growth in the economy is fantastic. I think we need to just be a bit patient and see that trickle down to things like the unemployment rate going down and more young people working. That would be my only comment.
Also, I think relying on sort of personal experience or stories is a mistake. I mean, the truth is that the Nigerian middle class is growing hugely, but people's expectations are even higher. Everybody has a television. Everybody sees the rest of the world. They have very high expectations. If you went to India, it may appear to be a success story in terms of looking from here to there. If you're there, you'll see exactly the same problems of people feeling that the growth has passed them, that they're not gaining enough personally. There's very high unemployment. There's a lot of school leavers without jobs. So these are challenges of any economy. Canada has similar problems. So I think I think the truth is that growth, the top line growth that you're reading about, is reflected in employment. For Nigeria to have much more substantial employment, it would have to get into the labor-intensive industries, which it has not yet. And this has come up recently with that horrible accident in Bangladesh. And Bangladesh has a huge textile garment industry with millions and millions of people employed. But lately there's been a lot of concern and hand-wringing, a horrible accident, and several hundred people killed. But I think if you were to ask, and in fact I think Bangladesh they've been saying, and a lot of Bangladesh people have been saying, please don't stop buying things that we produce in Bangladesh. This industry is employing millions and millions of people who otherwise would be living in poverty in rural areas without enough to eat and without access to medicine or education for their children. So, but that industry, Nigeria is unfortunately burdened by a very high cost structure, and it'll take growth and more competition and more businesses to start to bring down costs of operating in Nigeria so that it can become more efficient and more competitive in manufacturing.
And just one point on India, which I say I know a little bit about. India today, they still have about 250 million people to live on the equivalent of $1.25 a day or less. That's down from about 325 million 5 or 6 years ago, but they still have about a quarter of their population to fall into that category. Now, the middle class is growing. And one of the big differences between the Indian and the Nigerian economy is the Indian economy is domestic, bottom-up driven. So it's consumption-based economy. And in Nigeria, as I understand, it's more of a top-down economy. Exports, oil in particular, hydrocarbons, are a big driver of your government revenues and of the economy itself. So you have a different kind of growth pattern or model that you're following. As I say, India has been, for better or worse, primarily a domestically based economy with a sort of bottom-up kind of growth pattern. We have a gentleman over here, I think, who's got...
No, I had one comment.
Oh, sorry. Charles?
I would say the thing that is currently the issue that is hampering the Nigerian economy and employment, above all else, is the privatization of the power sector. If you look at studies that have been done about economic development and availability of power, in a capitalist economy, if you don't have power, you don't have economic growth. It's pure and simple. Right? You have a trading economy as opposed to an industrializing economy. So all the Nigerians out there, the most important thing you can do is get the electricity sector privatized. And I would actually argue that the middle class is really growing in Nigeria. I mean, I've been going to Nigeria for 5 years and the traffic jams only get worse. That means there's more cars on the road. In 2000, there was 500,000 telephone lines in Nigeria. Today, there's 100 million telephone lines. That means that the people of Nigeria are making telephone calls, and they've got telephones. Beer consumption's going up. Cement consumption's going up. That's the middle class. So I would actually argue that there is an emerging middle class in Nigeria, and to reduce unemployment and to continue the rapid pace of growth, I think Nigeria's GDP will go over 10% a year once the electricity issue is sorted out.
Last question.
Listening to your experiences, one major issue that you face is that of the sluggishness of the bureaucracy. I want to recommend an institution that is put in place to ease doing business in Nigeria, the Nigerian Investment Promotion Council. So if you encounter problems that are not extraneous to easing your business, please contact them. They are always business-like, and to a large extent, they are not very bureaucratic in their approaches to issues. You can contact them; they will be able to help you.
We did work with them.
Pardon?
We did work with them.
Okay.
And they were good, and they were relatively speaking efficient.
That's good. That's good.
Thank you. Well, let me, on behalf of all of you, thank our panel. I think there have been 3 very interesting success stories, 3 different success stories that still have a lot to tell. So let's give them a round of applause.